Hey everybody, welcome back. This week's High Heels to Happy Feels. I'm Natalie,
I'm Stephanie.
and this week we are going to be talking about Mercury retrograde that is coming up shortly.
Indeed. March 14th to be exact, and we'll be enjoying Mercury's presence in retrograde until April 7th. But we're going to talk a little bit about what's true, right? There's a lot of misconceptions around Mercury retrograde. I mean, there's a lot that's true as well. It is a retrograde. But we're going to talk a little bit and dive into that and say, okay, is this cosmic chaos or is this a wake-up call?
Absolutely. And I think a lot of it has to do with our perspective. So we're going to look at all of that today. So, Steph, tell us, what is Mercury retrograde?
Okay. Well, we have a great little analogy for this that I love. So imagine that Mercury is the universe's IT guy, keeping everything running smoothly, and then he or she suddenly takes a 3-week coffee break. And what happens? You start glitching, emails get lost, your flights get delayed, conversations take really weird, wonky turns. Things just don't get done. It wasn't smooth because there's not that only to, you realize that there's potholes here you never noticed before because the gaps had been filled in for you. That's Mercury retrograde. So Mercury retrograde appears, it generally is 3 to 4 times a year. It goes in 3-week cycles. So of course it just depends on, where we are with the planets orbiting as to if it's 3 or 4 times. And it's actually when you think of retrograde, it's because things look like they're in reverse to us, right? The R. They're actually not reversing. It's just how it's aligned with the Earth and where it aligns with the other planets, and it gives that appearance of reverse. But that is what we refer to as retrograde. Um,
It really is perspective.
it is
Like when I said
absolutely.
perspective, I'm like, this is all going to be about perspective.
It is because you could stay, yeah, because you can see it a totally different way. If you're standing on the moon, it's going to look very different to you as to how that appears, right?
Right. So true. Because, I stand on the moon a lot, so I'll take that into
Right.
consideration.
Right. Insert SpaceX comment here. Just kidding. All
Right.
right. So why does it feel so intense, Nat?
Well, I don't know if it is so much intense as everybody talks about it so much now,
Yeah.
because it is the retrograde that happens 3 times a year. And we have other planets that do the same thing.
Yep.
But Mercury is all about our perspective of it happening. So it always hits the social media platforms. It always hits the conversations at the water cooler. Oh, we're in retrograde. Every time we
Right.
have a tech glitch, people are like, are we in retrograde? And
Right.
everybody knows what you're talking about.
They do. And they could care less about astrology. Most of these people, they're just like, I don't know what that means, but we're in retrograde. And it's like, well,
Right. Because once you understand that little quip, you're like, okay, I'm going to blame it on retrograde. We must be in
right.
retrograde.
Right.
And
We must be.
oftentimes you're right because Mercury retrograde, it kind of messes with things, but it also gives you opportunities too. So
It
we'll talk
does.
about it, but it's like, and I know we've had a lot of car analogies, and I think we've actually used the same analogy before. But like when you're buying a new car, you're looking for a new car
Uh-huh.
and you never see it on the road and you're like, "Oh, I'm going to have the coolest car on the road." And then as you're shopping for it, all of a sudden it's appearing everywhere.
Yeah,
And that's because you're starting to pay attention. So you've become hyper aware, which is, I think, what we've done with Mercury retrograde.
I agree. Because now you are hyper aware of those dates. And so you automatically go right to doom and gloom, right? You're automatically like, oh, God, we can't do anything. And the computer's going to fritz. And this is going to happen in text messages and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, yes, things are off. But that doesn't mean that you can't alter how you deal with those situations, which, like you said, we talk about. But it's very, because you're so hyper aware. You are.
And we love patterns. So if there's ever a time, like we know it happens 3 to 4 times a year, we know that it happens for approximately 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Like people just love patterns. So once we're in the pattern and we understand it, even if we're astrology buffs or not, um, we expect those things to go wrong because we're in Mercury retrograde. And we
Right.
notice every little mishap and it becomes a Mercury retrograde problem. So it's just the pattern of things.
Yep. Yep. And specifically with Mercury because it is the key of communication. So
Hmm.
that's why it's so obvious to everybody because it's around communication. If it were something, Venus is in retrograde right now. And so with Venus retrograde, the difference being, no one's really talking about it. They're not hyper aware. It's really around self-care and just love and thinking about your relationships. But no one focuses on that because
Right.
that's very personal and it's self-development and all that. Whereas Mercury in communication, I mean, your computer glitches or your text messages send weird or things get
Or your
misspelled.
flight isn't there at your gate when you expect
Right,
it to
your
be.
flight, exactly. All those, travel, yeah, because travel's another big one. Then
Hmm.
you just automatically, oh, Mercury is retrograde. Okay, yep, 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 yep.
Although now that you mention it, I am going through it in Venus retrograde.
I
Like
know you are.
I am mad at the world right now.
I
And
know. I know.
I'll,
I wasn't
I
going to
mean,
bring
we're
it
not
up.
talking about Venus, and I'll get through that. But oh my
Yep,
God,
and
this thing is
that's fair.
painful.
Yeah. Yep, that goes. Yes. So you'll get through it and the nice thing is they wrap up right around the same time and we'll move on. Um yes. But
It just came into my mind, and this is horrible. It's like a dog that's gone to the bathroom, and they stretch their legs out like, all done, and they take off running. That's
uh-huh.
how I'm gonna feel at the end of these retrogrades.
Kick some grass and run.
I'm
Woohoo!
gonna kick grass and run. Sorry, people. I'm way
Oh my
out
God, that's so funny.
on
That
a
visual is
limb.
awesome. Yeah, but it's true. And that's just it. We've got double retrograde right now,
Yeah.
so well, Venus
Or
right
will be,
now,
yeah.
right, Mercury will be on the 14th. And so it is going to be a really deep time. And we just got a blog post out there today on it as well. But it's going to be a really big time for introspection and taking your time and communicating and um, there's a lot. We'll talk about the bulleted list for Mercury specifically today because that is the one that always lights everybody up. But
Hmm.
really, there's a lot going on with both. And then we've got a couple of eclipses this month. We have the blood moon on our full moon. Also, the same day, it starts the same day as Mercury retrograde.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
yeah, it's intense. It's
Well, and so okay, like, oh, you mentioned that we're not going through it yet, but can we talk about the pre-shadow? Because I've like the house is quiet today, which it's normally not because my mom lives with me and I've got kids and so he's at work and my
yep.
mom has a lot of things going on today. So the house is quiet and I was like, this is a great opportunity for me to do a lot of immersive spirit stuff because I need to do some recordings and blah blah blah. Anyway, I can't get my mouse to move and I can't, and we're not in Mercury retrograde yet.
Oh, but you're right, we are. Um,
Right.
so with the stars moving everyone, so as you think about it and you have to as you delve into it more, as the planets move, as the universe moves, as the earth shifts, we move from one place to another. And so you're slowly going in you're in a shadow and then you're in the light and then you're in the shadow again. So even like the moon is the most obvious because it's dark and then it's light and then it's dark. So that's kind of what that is with that shadow. Same thing as a waning and waxing series of events with your moons. Your pre-shadow, which is generally around 2 weeks before with Mercury, right? And all the planets are going to vary because they move at different times. So each one's got a different speed per se as to how quickly they move around. And so your pre-shadow work or your pre-shadow period for Mercury is about 2 weeks. So you're
Okay.
already starting to feel it, or you have been feeling it. And that's your tech quirks you were talking about. Miscommunications, which we've had a lot of lately, everywhere,
Yeah.
all over the world. Old themes are resurfacing. So things from your past that maybe you didn't. And I had one yesterday that I just was like, of course. Of course. And so you got to just embrace it and roll with it. But that's all your pre-shadow period. Then your retrograde period is around 3 weeks, right? And so that's
Mhm.
when we are in it. We'll talk about that and kind of the bullets around that. But then you have your post shadow. And your post shadow is another 2 weeks following. So that period from April 7th till April 14th is still on the cusp, right? Of things that I
Because
just,
it's rolling back into direct, right?
right, because I just kind of stay away from those. So that's your final wrap up. What lessons did I learn from this? Um, what can I finalize? How can I finish this off?
I
And
like, oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I like to think of it like a movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like the pre-shadow is the trailer that you watch to see if you're going to like the movie, to see if
Yep.
you're going to waste your time.
Yeah.
And then retrograde is the movie, and the post-shadow is kind of like the
The credits.
credits.
Yep. Right. And some of
And
the
I'm
credits
telling
of
you,
movies, like, right,
I
you
don't
got
want this
some,
one.
yeah, right. You don't,
I don't
most
want this
movies you don't want to sit
retrograde.
and watch the credits, and there's a few movies that you're like, oh, those are some funny credits. I'm staying till the end. I know, like Deadpool movies, for example. You know the credits are going to be funny right up till the end. So you just hang out and you're hanging with everybody else in the theater going, uh-huh, uh-huh, what's next? Others, you're
This,
going, why am I being forced to watch the credits? Why won't you let me get out of my seat? Yeah.
and that I already know that's this Venus match Mercury thing going on. Like this is not going to be my favorite movie.
No,
I'll make it through and I'll
but
watch the whole thing happen.
right.
So how do we survive this?
Well, you look for the highlights, right? So there's always good pieces to every film. Every film's got at least one redeeming piece, even if it's somebody who's only just a good-looking actor, right?
Yeah,
And
right.
that's you just go, okay, well, that's the part I have to glean on. So for this month, it's number one, patience. It's you're going to be fine. Everybody's going to be fine. It happens every year, guys. It happens multiple times a year. It's happened every year
Right.
your entire life, and it's going to keep happening that way. Um,
That's
the
the hyper awareness again.
It's hyper awareness.
Like
And
when we were
so
younger, we knew nothing of this.
no, but it's really fun now because when the laptop does something, I'm like, well, Mercury Retrograde, and I can sit there and cuss about it and do these things and just laugh. But it's fun. You have a scapegoat, right? Because you kind of just do that. But
Something to blame it on, yeah.
right. But look at your text and your emails. So before you hit send, read it out loud because this is a really big time of misinterpretation of when people are going to say things and we're going to take them wrong or they're saying them wrong and it's not how it's meant because again we're hyper aware. And
Right.
so when I'm just saying, have a great day, maybe it's been a rough conversation and I really mean, hey, have a great day. And the tone is kind of, I'm sorry it ended that way. And the person on the other end says, take it like, have a great day. Yeah,
And they're taking it like you said it from the South.
exactly. So think about how you're communicating things and watch for typos. Watch for
Well,
typos. That's going to be a
and
big one.
definitely back up your devices
Oh
because
boy.
like
Hmm.
Stephanie's Mac is going down and we
Yes, it
know
is.
it is. And there's so much immersive spirit. Like we have things moved all over the place now. And I
Yeah.
know she has personal stuff too.
Yeah. Most of mine lives in the cloud, gratefully, but it's just there's a lot. And I just kind of say, and this Mac's only 5, but the fact is, Immersive Spirit has, with the amount of software and programs, astrology programs included, it is a little bit of a drain on what I had purchased this for originally. So
She needs a bigger boat.
I need a bigger boat. My bigger boat is on the way, but it's,
Right.
yeah. And so I look at that, and when the heating really started happening and really getting hot and that kind of thing, I'm like, oh, was that about 2 weeks ago? Hmm.
Right.
Hmm. Little
Coming into
before,
that
but
pre-shadow.
yep, I'm just kind of going, all right, yep, yep, writing's on the wall, just take care of it. Yeah. And it's fine because I'm moving. This is not something, and one of the things I would guess I would say is a don't then, because as we're talking about backing up your old devices, we also don't want to go into major investments of things that you're not familiar with. So, you'll hear a lot of times Mercury retrograde people will say, don't sign contracts, never sign contracts during this time. There are times you
Well,
can,
if you can avoid them, I would take
exactly.
that
There
to
are
heart.
times that you just can't avoid it. If they have set the closing date and the seller of that house says, no, it absolutely has to be this date, how bad do you want the house? The only thing in this instance then is read the fine print. Read that's the recommendation, right? Because the fact is there's a communication breakdown potentially in there somewhere, and you just need to be aware. So again, it's just paying attention. And that is the same thing like with this laptop. Did I veer from Mac? No way. I'm a Mac girl. So I'm an Apple girl. And that is what I got. It's just ginormous in terms of memory and some of those things that this one didn't have. And so watch how you shift, I guess would be
Yeah.
how I say that. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that, yeah, I agree. Watch, yeah. Just pay
Yeah.
attention to what you're doing, read the fine print. Like,
Yes.
be hyper aware in your daily life, not just hyper aware that it's a Mercury retrograde,
Right.
but
Right.
the things that you can take. And a lot of times, especially on social media, you'll hear like your exes will slide into your DMs and all of that other stuff, which I actually think is a good thing. It's a good time to revisit old projects or
Hmm.
reconnect with people or reflect on some past decisions,
Yep.
but do it from a place of love and do it from a place of respecting other people's um, ability to deal with you in that moment. Like, don't put
Absolutely.
yourself in on anybody,
Yep.
but
Yep.
it's a good time for that too.
And this is a bigger one this month. And I mean, specifically this month because of Venus retrograde, it's huge. I mean, that is a really, really good point because this is also a time of self-love, which means healing, which means shadow work. You know, there it is. I got it in this week, shadow work. So it's something that yes, if that ex does slide in that DM like that, then deal with it. Deal with it. Figure out what that is and why. And especially if it's somebody from years ago, right? Why now? Um, but then address it and then bless and release it because it's about self-healing for you. And there's sometimes that those things circle back around because there's something about that you have to forgive in yourself or
Well,
that
right.
you
I
have to
like
forgive
that's
in your
I think that's the point though too, is like the ones that are sliding into your DMs are things that you need to address.
absolutely. And
And
there's
if
certain things,
Mercury's
yes, it's an old project, like you said.
right,
Yeah. Yeah.
and if Mercury's going to force that, you take this as an opportunity to close out or look at the fine print of that and
Yes.
see what needs to be dealt with.
Absolutely. Because Mercury retrograde is definitely a time of not taking on new projects. This isn't when you want to get all creative and jiggy with it. This is the time when you go, okay, what did I already start? Let's finish that up. Was I decluttering? That's a really good time for that. And I mean, even if you weren't, it's a really good time for that. And that's something, Nat and I were talking about before the call, even is decluttering and just kind of downsizing some things. And it's an excellent time because it's self, it's not taking on something new. You're actually cleaning up and making space for something new when it's time, which just isn't now.
Right, right. And it's funny you bring that up because we're going to have like 6 to 8 retrogrades, Mercury retrogrades before like my plan starts
Coming to fruition.
executing. Right. Like I'm thinking maybe I'll move in a couple years. So I'm starting to declutter now, but it really is reducing my own stress. And because everybody who listens to this probably knows that I'm a planner because I mention it every time.
Every time. Uh-huh.
Every time. Shadow work, planner, squirrel. There's a few other things we're gonna have to say,
Uh-huh.
but that really gives me space to operate like and and not take these retrogrades like they're good things for me
Yeah.
because I'll declutter, I'll get rid of things, I'll review and yeah.
And that's what
It's
it's
all
all about
opportunity.
because it's a positive time. It's just weird because we are so aware of everything in our environment anymore. And it's become something that is like, if it weren't for social media, would everybody be as hyper aware? Probably not. But because we do
Right.
have social media and we do have those platforms where people are like, oh, Mercury retrograde, and, don't do this and don't do that and don't. It's like, never, we don't, it's kind of like the words never, always. don't, yeah, don't get hung up on those because there are always going to be exceptions to the rule. There always will. And it's a time for you to finish what you started and hang out for a little bit and just kind of relax. You do have to be patient. You got to go with the flow during
Mhm.
Mercury retrograde because shit is going to happen. That is just,
All the
that's the
time.
bottom line, folks. It's just gonna say, well,
Steph and
that was interesting and write it down, right? Okay.
yeah, Steph and I travel a lot for both businesses, and
Yeah.
I am always traveling, it seems, on a Mercury retrograde.
And we
And
are this week. Yeah.
literally, and we are this time too. And literally, I will just sit in my chair when you hear the PA come on, because you know that it's going to be your flight.
Yeah.
You're like, it's fine. I have everything I need. It's
Right.
fine.
I don't
Like,
need to be there
respond,
early.
don't
Where's
react.
where's the restaurant? Let's go
Right?
grab something to drink. We're gonna hang out right here, whip out the laptop, maybe watch a movie. Yeah. Because
No
what are you gonna
problem.
do? What are you gonna do?
Respond, don't react.
Yes. Always proactive. I mean, just approach it with if you approach it like it's a game or a journey, like, ooh, what's going to happen today? Because we're in retrograde. This could be exciting. Maybe the internet will go out. What can I do
Right.
when the internet's out? I can read a book. I can take a bath. I can go do this. You know what I mean? What if your power goes out? Ooh, where's my candles? I'm going to light candles and we're going to do this. And yeah, what
Be
else?
prepared for the unplanned because
Yes.
and those are the amazing parts of life anyway, because we talked about the biofeedback stuff before.
Mm-hmm.
This is breaking one of those neural pathways that you're not in charge of everything, and life is going to happen to you.
Yes.
So be a part of it. Like, don't let it happen to you. Be a part of it.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
good stuff.
Pause, reflect, refine, right?
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Embrace it because it can be so much fun. You just have to look at it and say, well, that's an interesting glitch. And there are times that, if I'm not paying attention to the calendar for whatever reason in the past, I've gone, are we in retrograde? No,
Me too.
no, we're not. And then I'm like, oh, but it's close. Oh, but this is over here. Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah.
Right?
Yep. But then write it down in your synchronicities and go, okay, look, we're Mercury retrograde and the power blipped. Shocking. Shocking.
Right, shocking. Or
Right?
or if it does something weird specifically to you, write it down because that's part of your path. And
Absolutely. It's spirit talking to you to say, oh,
yeah,
look, this is
next time it comes, you might be ready for that whatever.
right.
Oh
It's a
yeah, we're in
signal.
retrograde.
Yeah. It's a signal just for you.
Just
So,
for me, because I'm
yeah.
special, because we are. We're all
Right.
special.
We're all special. We are.
Yeah.
I think that wraps it up for Mercury retrograde.
Yeah, we could drone on, but we don't need to.
No, I think we've hit the highlights, right? I mean, I will say if you haven't, the blog post came out today, so you can go to immersivespirit.com and it's under Thoughts from IS. Went into a lot more detail about Venus retrograde, Mercury retrograde, the full moon coming up, and just with the eclipse and what that looks like in the week/month ahead. So you're welcome to check that out. But I'll include it in the notes for our podcast as well, so everybody can grab that. But otherwise, I would say, of course, we have our full moon release party coming up this week too. We'll be doing that from Sedona. It's supposed to be
Yes.
colder in Sedona, so we might be indoors.
Which is the same thing that happened in our last full moon.
I know
It was
because we
like
were in
80 degrees,
Arizona
but it was
and
windy.
yeah, we were in Green Valley and it was like, nope, too windy here. Okay. We
Yeah,
keep getting this
totally.
Arizona vibe and then we're like, nope, full moon, you will be indoors. Oh, all right.
Well, it'll depend on our situation. Like,
Yeah,
I don't know. We'll have to
location.
figure it out when we get down there.
Scope it.
Yeah.
But yes, but please feel free to join us. It's always fun. We do just kind of a chill out, hang out, let it all go. And especially as we're going into retrograde at the same time, it's going to be a really good opportunity to just dig into relaxing, dig into just not
Dig
being,
into release
dig
because we don't need
exactly.
to control it.
Because there is, yeah, control is a made up word, people. That's just the way it is. Get used to
Yeah,
it.
and that's what I'm having issues with, for real.
I
Like
know. I
the
know.
struggle is real, folks. I get it. I'm with you.
Right? It is intense right now.
Yeah, it
So,
is.
yes. And then don't also forget right now in through Ostera, so through basically March 21st,
Mm-hmm.
we are offering 30% off on our framework of living your soul, which is a 6-week program that is highly intensive. There's a lot of content. So, from working with your clairs and your chakras and your auras to working with divination tools to grounding and shadow work, and I'm missing a lot.
Well, just introducing yourself to you in like the biggest way possible.
Absolutely. That's a great way to put it. That's really good. Introducing yourself to you in the biggest way possible. Yeah. Yeah. But it's awesome. 30% off. And that is, like I said, through March 21st. Use the code OSTERA30. I'll put that in our notes as well.
And Ostara
And
is a wonderful time because it's
it
the halfway
is,
point between the winter and the spring. So it's like, let's prep and plan for the blooms that are coming to plant those seeds. And
yes, we're
yeah,
midway.
midway.
Midway. And don't forget, if you are in the States, well, most states, some of you lucky souls don't have to. Tomorrow is spring ahead, Sunday, March 9th. For depending upon when you listen to this, you spring ahead 1 hour. Woohoo! Spring is here. So, not officially yet. That is Ostera. So we will maybe we'll do our next podcast on Ostera.
Yeah.
Or we could do the one in
Well,
a couple of weeks too. I don't know. We'll talk about that.
yeah, we'll figure it out. Oh, yeah, and you know what? Because we're going to Arizona
Hmm.
and we plan everything and we're constantly working. So like I had to think, okay, well we're springing ahead in time, but they're not springing ahead. So now we're going to be an hour like
Oh, I know. We're all
just
over the map.
conceptualizing every plan that I had, like all the meetings and stuff I have to do.
I know. Thank goodness that's where we'll find out if we're
Yes.
going to cork on Mercury. Because if, right? Because the
We
calendar,
set everything up
right?
to fall apart if it needs to.
Right? There you go. The calendars shift automatically because, they go, oh, you're in this time zone. Do you want us to change? And you say, sure, great, thanks. Or,
No,
and
don't
now,
because I have it scheduled to go this way.
and now it's going to get there and go, what are we supposed to be on a call? Okay. Well, it should be interesting. Stay tuned, folks. We're with you.
If we're late and we're supposed to be meeting with you,
We're in Arizona.
you just, yeah, ping
Bear
us.
with
I don't
us.
know. We'll figure it out. We're just going to roll with it because we are not controlling Mercury retrograde.
No, no.
Let's
We're
do it.
gonna roll with it, baby.
Venus and Mercury retrograde. Let's go.
Let's go. All right. Well, from high heels to happy feels, I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Natalie.
With Immersive Spirit, we're grateful for you, and we'll talk to you again next week. Have a great week and enjoy the beginning of Mercury retrograde. You're in Venus retrograde and that beautiful blood moon on its way. Bye bye.